Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from Gotham City, I'll be your commissioner, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, my co-host and billionaire playboy, Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, billionaire playboy?
David, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
That's a great billionaire playboy voice. Now, quick, give me your crime
Thank
fighter
you.
vigilante voice.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
It was really good. Unfortunately, Sean just blew his throat out, so he's going to be silent for the rest of the show, so I will take it from here. He's trying. No, that was actually really good. Really good. I don't know if you could do it for like 18 hours in a sound booth like Kevin Conroy had to do, but
It's interesting for Batman, the animated series. Batman speaks more than I would think Batman would actually have conversations.
yeah, especially in the episodes that we watched, there's a whole lot of Batman talking
Right.
going on. But they also gave times for like just dialogueless action too, which I thought was really nice, a nice kind of
Right.
breather moment.
Yeah. So I feel like Conroy's not talking the entire time, but I mean that growl though, that is throat shattering at some point. So
I gotta tell you,
so much respect to that man.
I don't know. I love his Batman voice. Obviously, everybody does. His Bruce Wayne voice cracks me up.
Is the best
because it's just like
it's so fucking good.
It's just like, oh, a white guy just walked into the room. Like it's very, yeah.
Hello, David. How are you doing today?
That's a Will Ferrell.
Good
kind
to
of thing
see you,
going on,
David. Wonderful.
But no, it's great. It's great. Inimitable. Obviously, we're talking Batman the Animated Series. Holy crap, you guys. This is our 99th episode.
Woo!
We're so excited right now. Sean and I have been talking about this for a very long time. And it's crazy that it's finally here, but it's also awesome that it's finally here. So we've got a cool episode lined up for you guys tonight. It's a little bit different from what we usually do. And then a very special episode coming up for 100. But you'll have to wait a week for that one, unfortunately.
Woohoo! Teasing.
Yeah, just a little bit. Hey, if they've stuck with us this long, then they know what's coming. They'll be all right.
They're gonna be fine.
They're gonna be fine.
Oh man, this show.
Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit because I feel like this one we don't really need to delve into too much of the history because I feel like if you know any cartoons, it's probably this one. You've probably at least heard about it. You knew it was in like the mid '90s. It's obviously about Batman. You know it's fantastic. What else you need to know?
This show for me is in many ways one of the reasons that we started this podcast.
Right.
And I know that we've mentioned this before. This was the show that when I would get off the school bus, I would run home to watch.
Yeah, definitely. You never want to miss an episode of this.
No, absolutely not. This came on in the afternoon, and even if I had already watched the episode previously,
Right.
I still wanted to watch it again. This I want to say I feel like I did this for somewhere between like 3 years of just watching Batman the Animated Series as much as possible. Just I think it was, what was it, Fox after school?
Yeah, definitely. Fox.
And, this cartoon, I feel like, spoiled me for some of the other things that then I had either watched previously and have now watched post Batman TAS as an adult, because this sets a very high bar for things. And I know that we've talked about this, especially in last episode in 98, where we discussed Cowboy Bebop, but I feel like Batman the Animated Series not only has that place in my heart for all the nostalgia that I had growing up, but it sets such a high bar for being such an excellent program that it kind of spoiled me for some of these other things. I hold this show as criteria against a lot of other things that I've watched.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's literally like the bar that you have to surpass, or if you fall beneath it, then just guess what? You're just not as good as Batman the Animated Series, which is not that bad. It's just that this, for me, it was at a formative time. It was something I had never really seen before. I mean, the closest thing to that was probably Gargoyles around the same time, but that was for me, that was a brand new property, whereas Batman had, 30, 40 years of or more of comic book history already built into it. And it was just a very different view from the previous Batman cartoons that came before it. The ones that came before were kind of in that Adam West style or the Super Friends style, where it was not necessarily slapsticky, but just kind of way more cartoonish, which is fine. That's just how it was in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
they tacked on a little bit of camp, and it was
Yes.
fun, and it was all right.
And then it definitely got
But
out of
nothing,
hand in the 80s with the Super Friends once they ballooned up to all those
right?
crazy proportions. But
But nothing had the grit that this had in the 90s. And as a kid kind of growing up and having this come on, as you had mentioned, during those formative years when you're building opinions and you're watching things and you're enjoying them and you're figuring out whether or not you like them or not. This was one of those shows that I don't know. I felt like I glommed onto this right away. I was like, this is what I want a cartoon to be.
yeah, and look, it was different for like it was a different part of the palette too. So like, I like the Animaniacs and the Simpsons and anything else that was on TV around this time. I mean, I still watch that stuff, but this wasn't a comedy, obviously. It was just pretty much a straight up drama slash action with some comedic elements. Like the writing was fantastic for the show because they were able to do everything so well. There really wasn't like a weak point. And this just sounds like kind of fanboy talking right now, but honestly, if you go back, like they still held up today. We watched 2 episodes. Sean and myself have been watching episodes just for fun in our own time. And I mean, for me, they still hold up. And I'm finding new things as I watch them now after, 20 plus years of being able to watch TV in the last few years, thinking about it more critically. I'm still finding stuff now that like makes me laugh in a new light, or that I'm just like, wow, that's really impressive, or stuff that I didn't appreciate when I was a kid. So
Right.
definitely worth revisiting. I mean, there's some of these shots that are like, even if they're just establishing shots, they're gorgeous and they're
Yeah.
beautifully illustrated, but they're also wonderfully framed and very artistically done. Whereas if you watch some, and I'm not just talking cartoons, this goes for live action, movies, everything. A lot of this stuff just doesn't even measure up to this animated series, which is crazy.
Right. And we have Eric Radomski to thank for all of these cityscapes and everything that's included in this. I mean, he's just done such a fabulous job of making this look sort of like a 50s kind of aesthetic within Gotham City that it falls so well into place, and you never doubt kind of what's happening in there for a second, but the city is and feels alive and active the entire
Right.
time.
Yeah, and the style of it's super cool too. I mean, I think they even earlier than the 50s, it does kind of have that classical kind of like the classic lines to it that look like 50s Cadillac pretty much everywhere. But I think it
Right.
actually goes back to even earlier to like early 40s of like the Fleischer Studios cartoons, so like the really really early Superman cartoons with kind of the simple designs but like bold choices.
And we know that Bruce Timm had mentioned that a lot of his inspiration was, in fact, those early 40s Superman comics, as well as also the pulp magazines that were prevalent in the 40s and the 50s. But just, and the crazy thing to think, and I didn't realize this, is that, Bruce Timm has been working on on some of the cartoons that we have watched and loved our entire life, and things that we've talked about on this show, like Freakazoid. He's worked on Tiny Toon Adventures. I mean, there's so many things that he's been a part of. We've talked the Real Ghostbusters before, and so these are all franchises. These are all IP that he's worked on, that he's done a fantastic job, and this was one of the first things that he really was able to lend his direct influence and skill on. And you have to realize that when this show came out, nobody would have ever thought that in 2016, current day, that there are still movies that he's still producing and making movies in the DC animated universe.
Yeah, do you know if he's involved in The Killing Joke? I'd be surprised if he wasn't, at least
Uh,
as a producer, because that's the next one to come
you know,
out. So that's the first ever R-rated movie for a Batman product, live action or
right,
animated. One of
right,
very few R-rated animated movies that actually come out in America and at least get like a wide release. Now, granted, the first trailer for that dropped last couple weeks ago. People were not
yeah,
thrilled because the animation was kind of choppy. It looked like it was missing a lot of frames in between. It was very just kind of like stilted. Uh, they're kind of trying to go back to a different animation style. Animation is supposed to reflect the comic, the graphic novel, but people are a little leery. I'm hoping it's just an early trailer and they just kind of rushed it and it's not complete or polished up yet. But
right.
I don't know. So until then, we'll have to stick with Batman the Animated Series, which I'm totally fine with.
Yes. I mean, we've talked about this previously on the show for Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. He has worked on all of those. So I mean, just the stuff that he has done and the people that he's cast as voice actors.
Well, I have to give props to Andrea Romano for that because she's been the voice
Correct.
casting director for a very, very long time. She was like the one that discovered Conroy, and she was the one that kind of, I think she brought Hamill in, or just wanted to hear him for the Joker. But she's been doing this voice work stuff for a very long time, very long time.
Great.
She's very good at her job.
And I mean, she's done such an excellent job. I think actually the last thing that Bruce Timm worked on was he was the executive producer for Justice League Gods and Monsters.
Okay, so that wasn't that long ago.
And Justice League Gods and Monsters Chronicles.
Yeah.
So not too long ago.
Cool. But yeah, so speaking of just like the design and things like that, once you watch, well, your first introduction to Batman the Animated Series, I mean, if you want to get into it right now,
yes,
is that theme song. Which I'm kind of pissed at Amazon because they, for whatever reason, I don't know if this is on every episode, but at least on the ones that we watched, they pulled the theme song that's from the later seasons where it's packaged as the New Adventures of Batman and Superman, the Adventures of Batman and Superman. They repackaged it into like an hour, right? So it's like the Batman and Superman hour. And for whatever reason, even on the Batman episodes on Amazon, they have the non-traditional theme song. They have the one used later, and that was very disappointing to me because I just wanted to hear this theme song.
There's actually the thing that I'm upset about with Amazon is that they have 3 different versions of it.
Oh, okay, good.
They have
Wonderful.
So they have the Batman Superman package.
Okay.
They have the Batman and Robin
Yes,
package
yes.
that we'll talk about a little bit later. But then they actually do for certain episodes, because I've been watching for the last month a majority of season 1 of Batman the Animated Series, and every couple episodes it hits you with that theme song, and those are the moments where I'm just like, yes,
I guess I'm okay with that. If they're going to sneak up on me, and I'm not sure where they're going to be. But for today, when I watched this first episode, I was just like, oh, man.
Yeah, it really, again, we've talked about theme songs really setting the tone and kind of preparing you mentally and building you into those episodes. And nothing does it better than Batman the Animated Series orchestral opening that they have that just brings you into this world of Batman in such a subtle, unsuspecting fashion, where there's no text, there's no dialogue, there's nothing to differentiate what's going on, and the highlight is really just Batman and his actions, and just how quick and how fluid and how intimidating he is as a character and a persona that he portrays against these thugs.
Yeah, and I love the visual style. I mean, the musical cues and stuff are amazing. I think originally they were based off of Danny Elfman's score for the Tim Burton movies, which you can definitely hear some of that in there, but it definitely became its own thing. And then the animation for this as well, it's like it introduces you to a world where basically like the Gotham City police department has blimps. So they have these airships that are just flying around the city. And that never happened. I mean, that was like a concept that was theoretical. That never actually happened. So you're automatically looking at this and just like, oh, when? Where is this taking place? Is this real life? What is happening here? And I love that it sets up that kind of like Art Deco style of, you just know you're in a very stylized world. And I love that first introduction because it's like, oh, this is a very specific world for this one specific thing, and that thing is Batman, and it's going to be great.
David, did you mention my dirigible?
You're dirigibled? Have you been? Sean's been dirigibled.
Would you like to be able to come out on a ride on my dirigible with
I'd love to ride in the gondola beneath your dirigible, not so much in the hydrogen/helium filled balloon.
That's exactly where we have space.
Well,
so
I would be riding in steerage, so I'd prefer helium over hydrogen, I think.
Yeah, I think that's how that works.
I'd love to know what they were filled with in this cartoon. Did one ever like crash, blow up?
Yeah, there were certain episodes where I believe that they had, or maybe I'm thinking of a later.
You're thinking of the Hindenburg. No, I'm thinking maybe there was one. Either that or Cops. You're thinking of Cops. The only other cartoon in 99 episodes to feature dirigibles.
Dirigibles. Oh boy.
But no, these were great. And they were actually used in like the very first episode too, which I loved. I love that they made it like a focal point. That it was actually something that was very distinct in the opening sequence, and then, most times you're just like, I'll never see that again. But it's kind of cool. They actually work them into the plot sometimes too. But yeah. Anything else on the theme song before we jump into some stuff here?
No, I mean, I don't think that there's enough good things that you can say about this. I love the other thing that I will say is that I love that this orchestral score that sets up and really just kind of takes control of all the action that's going on during this theme song. I love that it is present during the episodes.
Yes.
You get little flutters of sound, whether it's during moments where Batman is investigating something, or he's sneaking around in the shadows, or even during these fight scenes that he has. It's ever present, and I want to say, like, you hit it right on the head with the Art Deco. The other thing that I think that is so fantastic about this is just the copious use of negative space that they have that is present throughout the entire theme song. And it's
throughout
funny
throughout the episode sometimes
throughout the
too.
show.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're just going to be glowing with praise again.
No, I am.
I mean, I totally am. I'm not
again,
going to say a bad word
you
about
said this last week. You said this last
Yeah.
week. We've come 99 episodes.
Yeah.
We deserve to enjoy these cartoons that we're watching. This is not Bots Masters. This is not Dino Riders. This is not Denver.
You
so
take it
we're
easy.
getting into these things.
Dino Riders.
And we are going to. I feel like the 98th and 99th episode, I can enjoy the shit out of these cartoons, and I can glow. I can glow for 5 fucking seconds. And we are gonna love the shit out of this.
And then we'll
cartoon.
get back to building an army of dinosaurs.
Man.
Before we jump into the episodes that we watched tonight, we want to talk a little bit about kind of episode order, production order, and then actually the unaired pilot that was used to launch this entire series for Warner Brothers Animation. So first, a note on the production. It's kind of wonky, right? These came out from 92 to 95. There were 85 episodes produced, but the order of them is all over the place. So if you look at just the production sheets, the production call numbers, there were technically only 2 seasons of these 85 episodes. If you look at the seasons that were actually aired, there are 4 seasons, but the 4th one was only 5 episodes in 1995. So it's just kind of bonkers. They had basically, like, I don't even know the math for that, but they basically had 5 episodes that rolled out in the fall of 1995, one of which won a Daytime Emmy. That was called Bullet for Bullock. But it was difficult for us to kind of like track down and really pinpoint what is the last episode. What can we call the last episode? Is it the last produced? Is it the last aired? Is it the whatever? So we actually went with the first and questionably last episode tonight. And the first is On Leather Wings. And the one that we watched last is Deep Freeze. So if you're familiar with either of those, we're going to be talking about them tonight. If not, you feel free to pause this now and go watch them on Amazon or wherever you'd like, and then come on back for the discussion. Before we get into the discussion, John, this unaired pilot, it's what, like 2 minutes long? 2-3 minutes?
Yeah, if not, it's got to only be 2 minutes long.
And there's like no dialogue, right?
No, there's no actual dialogue in this, and it's actually very interesting to watch this because when they came to Eric Radomski and they came to Bruce Timm, they kind of pitched this as an idea because they wanted the studio WB wanted there to be a Batman the Animated Series. They wanted this to happen, and so they came to Tim and they said, "Hey, can you do some sketches? Like, can you put some stuff together?" And then they also went to Radomski and said, "Hey, can you do some cityscapes? Can you do some background?" Both of them at the time were artists on Tiny Toon Adventures.
I just remember one of them just being like, I went into work, I sketched whatever the hell I had to do for that cartoon, and I like threw it to the side and then started sketching Batman. I love that. Either one, whatever one they were working on.
Decided that they were going to focus and that they were going to put this together and create something that they were really happy and that they were really proud of. Now, unbeknownst to them, the studio had already gone and greenlit the idea of doing a Batman cartoon. And so when this came to fruition, I believe it was one of the producers or one of their managers at the time kind of took this package that they had of these backgrounds and this work and this particular unaired pilot, and they brought it to the studio and said, "You should put these 2 guys in charge of this. You should make them producers of this show." And that's kind of what launched them and allowed them to do it. And it's interesting and it's great to watch the reaction as both of them are telling the story in this like 5-minute YouTube clip, because they are really shocked and amazed at the fortune and the luck and what has come to be an incredible opportunity that, you know, really kind of allowed them this freedom to create something as beautiful as this show. And so watching it, you can actually tell where they took a lot of those beats from this unaired pilot and turned it into the theme song.
Yeah, into the opening sequence. Yeah.
Right. And so it's but again, it's, you have these jewel thieves that are on the tops of this building in Gotham City.
Yeah, and this is actually called, it is the unaired pilot, but it's actually called The Dark Knight's First Night. So it sounds like a Christmas Carol or something, but it's The Dark Knight's First Night. This is in 1992, so that's
visited by the ghost of Batman.
Punched me in the face. I love these jewel thieves because they're not just stealing like, a couple rings or bracelets from under glass. The dude has like a wardrobe full of jewels, full of jewelry.
Crook's got a whole like attaché full of jewels,
just lifting it by himself on a rooftop.
Yeah, it just dumps it, and in that moment, like they see as they're like down on the ground, like scrounging and putting everything back together, you kind of see that silhouette of Batman just fly over top for like a second.
Like shadow on shadow. And I love that so much with this art style. It's always a darker shadow on top of a lighter shadow. So it's like it can be a dark midnight blue kind of night, but then you have that black cape kind of go flying by. Beautiful.
Right. So then you get this moment where they all draw their guns and it pans back and you see that there's a third guy that's on the rooftop and he gets that kind of like bonk, bonk, bonk on his shoulder where like he turns around, he's like, what? And then just knocked the fuck out, man. Like he gets
right in the button.
Right in the button. And so he is down to the count. And in this moment, there's something that kind of crazy has happened. These two other crooks that are putting together these jewels, they just start unloading at Batman.
Oh, yeah. They're just like, I don't know what the hell this thing is. Let's shoot the shit out of it.
And it's crazy because you see in this moment, like, Batman is just dodging bullets.
He's just jiving, shucking and jiving out of the way. He's just kind of like, woo, just dancing out of the way. Which is weird. Like the
jump jiving and wailing.
Animation style here is a little different. It's not I don't want to say it's not as polished because it's solid, especially for a pilot, but I mean it's a little different from what you get with the rest of the series. And that's because I think they use like 3 or 4 different production houses like every 20 episodes or so to go through these. So I'm amazed it's as consistent as it was, but for this unaired pilot it's a little different.
Well, I will give you a little note. I don't know if you watched enough of the episodes that had the intro for the Adventures of Batman and Robin bump card that's on there, but you can definitely tell during that opener that there are different production companies and different animation houses that are used for this because the colors vary and the tone varies so wildly within that 30 seconds that if you're familiar with the original intro and just sort of the consistency and tone, watching the Adventures of Batman and Robin is like a slap to the face.
It's literally going from like bold primary colors for the newer intro, like just solid blues and reds and sometimes yellows, to like this sepia tone kind of washed out noir style. It's just like wow, what the hell?
What the fuck?
And then also like if you watch some of the characters as you progress through the series, specifically like Scarecrow and I think Clayface might be, and Joker. I mean, hell, all of them probably, but they take on like very, very distinct design changes as they go through the years too.
I even saw one with an earlier version of Mr. Freeze.
Really?
Just a little bit more mechanical.
Interesting.
Versus the episode that we watched for tonight, and the voice was way different. It was so machine oriented in nature in these earlier episodes that when I saw him, and it was almost distracting, kind of like in the way that Bane's voice was distracting in like when Tom Hardy played him.
I don't understand you.
I don't even understand what the hell you just said, but it was one of those things that was crazy.
I said, you have my permission to die. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
The only reason that I know what you said is because I subtitled.
Yeah, we've got our closed captions on for the podcast.
But yeah, it's crazy. It's just such a stark.
It's just
difference.
amazing that the show has, from beginning to end, from memory, has been as good as it was, because there are so many things that could have gone so wrong, and there's nitpicks and stuff that fans will make all the time, and that's fine. That's part of it. It's part of the fun. But I'm just amazed that the story stuck together and the voice cast was so good.
But we get this moment where Batman dodges all these bullets, and then he just lunges for these other 2 criminals, knocks one of them out immediately. The other one doesn't quite knock him out, but he does throw a batarang, knocks the gun out of his hand. And
as
then
Batman is known to do.
As it is written in scripture.
No, I mean, seriously, with some filmmakers these days need to be reminded of that.
Yeah, I know. So we have this with this third guy who's standing, we have this rough and tumble moment where Batman is just kind of going, trading blow for blow with this guy, and then finally he knocks him out. And in that exact moment, the Gotham police force busts open the door. Commissioner Gordon, just very distinct, like
Yeah,
coif of hair on
that
top.
mustard yellow shirt
Oh
with a
God!
black
And just
tie.
see that white hair with the coif on top, and he busts through. And in that moment, you just see Batman just jump off the side of the building, and as Gordon scrams over, you just see Batman just kind of glide away. You're just like, oh shit, it's on.
Yeah, and thus begins 80 some episodes of the possibly the best cartoon series ever. Let's jump into it, man. Let's
Yeah, let's get into
on
it.
leather wings. I want to say first of all, put yourself in these guys' shoes. They're like, okay, Batman's been around for 60, 50, 60 years. We're giving you the reins to start a whole new animated series. You've got, you've got the Rogues Gallery, you got the Joker, the Riddler, Penguin, Clayface, all these guys. What are you gonna what are you gonna use to make your mark the very first episode as a villain?
Well, I'll say
Yeah.
this: I love Batman,
Right.
but what? And I know that there,
I mean, I'm
it's
glad
a
you love
compound
Batman because
word.
that's what the show's
It's a
about. But
Right.
yeah,
Well, Batman is a compound word.
sure.
So what if we took it apart
Okay.
and switched the order and made Man Bat?
And made Man Bat.
What if we did Man
You
Bat?
want to do Man Bat for your first episode? You want to launch a ship into unknown, untested waters with
Let's
something
do it.
named Man Bat.
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Yeah.
And I think it actually worked pretty well. So
Okay.
Man Bat as a character, not like Harley Quinn, which was created for this series, Man Bat was actually, he'd been around since 1970 at this point. So he was introduced
Right.
in Detective Comics number 400. He's actually been around quite a long time. I didn't know that. I thought this was just a straight up creation for the show when I was a kid. I had no clue that this Man Bat thing existed. It scared the hell out of me when I was a kid, though. The
Yeah.
eventual transformation into Man Bat scared the hell out of me. The voice work, the modulation, the creepy like body
It's
horror
creepy.
stuff. It was like if like David
Ah.
Lynch directed an episode of Batman the Animated Series.
There,
Ugh.
there is. I don't know if you've played the game, Dave, but Arkham Knight, the latest Batman
have not.
game. There is a moment
Oh,
where
no.
you are flying around one of the islands,
Mhm.
and you just suddenly get attacked by Man Bat, and it comes out of nowhere, and I literally, like, the controller like flew out of my hand. Like, it was such a jump scare to
Yeah.
me because I didn't expect
No, you never
it.
expect Man
it-
Bat.
You never expect the Man Bat, and it was something that was not prompted. They didn't set up or build towards it. It happened so suddenly, and I freaked the shit out. But I was so glad that they brought it in. It's such a rewarding and interesting character.
And it's crazy because with all the characters, not just Man Bat, but with Batman, Bruce Wayne, Alfred, Commissioner Gordon, Harvey Bullock, whatever the judge's name was, and frickin' Two-Face in this very first episode. So Harvey Dent
Yeah.
before he's Two-Face.
Harvey Dent.
They're all just like, boom, here these people are. It's like, we're not introducing you to them. You know who they are, or you'll figure it out pretty soon. And if you know them from the comics, awesome. You're one step ahead of the game. And if you don't, stick around because we'll eventually introduce them in a future episode.
Right.
It's like, that was already better than like anything Gotham has ever put out. I was just watching. I'm just like, holy shit! Like within 10 seconds, they introduced like half the cast of Gotham, and they did it so much better than the Fox series does. It was great. I love that little moment in the. There's a moment in the police department where. Let me back up. I apologize. So this thing kind of opens with the cops in the blimp, right? They're riding around in the little gondola below billionaire Sean's dirigible, and which may or may not be filled with hydrogen. And they're just doing like reconnaissance, right? So they're just checking out the city, making sure everything's cool. And then they catch something on their radar and it just goes, just flies right by them. And the one guy does kind of the like, I think I saw something fly by. And the other guy's just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Probably a bird. I don't really care. I'm just on the clock. So eventually then there's this series of break-ins to pharmacies. And what happens is, and I love this moment. Do you remember any of the lines that the security guard has at Phoenix Pharmaceuticals? Do you remember the security guard there?
Oh, isn't he? He's like kind of closing up shop, and
He's just doing his
gets
rounds, but he's bored as hell.
Yeah. Right.
He just has these
So-
like voice actor jokes.
Oh, that's right. God, I don't remember what
Oh,
these
it's basically
specifically
just
are.
like, so he's just like walking along the hall, and he's got his little tape recorder out, and he's just doing his own exaggerated voices, and he's talking about like pitches for radio shows, and he's just recording himself, and it's just kind of like a neat little in joke for like the voice actors, because they're like, you want to make it big in Hollywood? Come on down. And he's just like, he keeps doing that. But eventually he has this run-in with the man bat, who literally just throws him out of a building and into whatever the effluent waste was from this pharmaceutical plant, which technically could have turned this guy into another villain in this world, but
Oh, what a twist!
that would have been great. But they didn't. He just ends up in the hospital with like a broken nose. And then emblazoned across the whatever the, what's the Gotham News? I don't even know what the name of the paper is. Doesn't matter. They're basically just like, police on citywide manhunt for Batman, because they assume that it's Batman. So like right out of the gates, it's not, we don't watch Batman's origin story. You're told Batman's been around for a while and the police are definitely after him now. And that's it. It's on. And the commish, Bullock, who I love, absolutely love this version of Harvey Bullock.
Yeah, he's so good.
And Bullock really wants to go after Batman. He really wants to take him down. Commissioner, because he's presumably worked with Batman before, is not ready to judge him so quickly. So it sets up a nice kind of like tension between the two. And then Harvey, do you remember how they introduced Harvey?
Well, because their Bullock is asking if he can have a task force to go after Batman, and Harvey Dent, being the district attorney, is, he actually sides with Bullock.
Yeah.
And says, I have faith in the both of you, but I want to capture this vigilante.
But how do you know he's Harvey Dent before they actually say District Attorney Dent, whatever they call him? How do you know it's?
Because he's flipping a coin. He's flipping a coin.
He's just chilling, flipping a coin.
He's sitting in a chair, and the angle that they have is you
so
can just kind of see his hand, and he's just flipping a coin. And you for anybody who loves Batman and has watched Batman, anytime you see that coin, it's so iconic. And just to see him do that, you're just like, oh, they can't possibly be Two-Face.
First episode, and I was just like, I literally was just like, holy fuck, it's Two-Face. Just screamed it out loud, which I obviously never would have said as a kid. But it was just like, whoa, okay, all right, I'm into this. Two-Face just hanging out there. And it's pre-Two-Face, too. So that means at some point in this series, we will get to see Two-Face actually be turned Two-Face, which I thought was pretty cool. So, yeah.
So we have all of this. We have all of this going on, and we have Batman kind of, coming to the scene of the crime at this pharmaceutical company to do a little bit more research.
Yeah, like after the scene of the crime. Yeah, the next day or whatever.
Right. And so, at this point, the task force has been issued. Like they are able to deploy. And
like
so
a straight up SWAT team.
Right. So somebody gets a hint that Batman might be there. Bullock arrives, shows up.
It was a couple of scientists sneaking out for a little neck.
Yeah. Kid, it was smooching.
Those Randy scientists.
So they see Batman. They tip off the cops, and so in this moment, though, Batman has been able to recover a key piece of evidence. Now, what I enjoy about this is that you always hear Batman being referred to as the world's greatest detective, and so this is always fun because you have that moment where Batman, yes, he's impressively strong. Mm-hmm. His physique is massive.
Great fighter.
And he is a force to always be reckoned with. And those moments where you can put sort of the brains with the bronze, was always great for me because it showed just how well versed he is at what he's doing. Like he can understand like there's a time to fight and there's also a time to do a little bit of research.
Look, I mean, I cannot agree with you more. I am so frustrated that we have yet to have like an actual movie where it's like Batman actually being a fucking detective. And it's so great to see him do this in this episode because he not only like he sneaks around, so he's stealthy. He's not just busting into place. He's not driving the Batmobile straight through the front door and blowing the joint up and then going to get whatever he needs. He sneaks in stealthily. Yes, he's caught by the two necking scientists. But he's sneaking around the place. He's gathering evidence. He's not, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's basically doing a cop's job. He's just doing it under the cover of darkness and a disguise. And I love that so much, and I miss it in any of the live action movies. Like, tell me a moment in a live action movie that we've seen where he's actually being like a great detective. I think Christian Bale probably comes the closest, but it's so few and far between. It's so frustrating. but please.
You know, and so to kind of to piggyback off of that idea, Dave, we have Batman detecting, and then because he's not an authority, or he doesn't know everything about potentially with the fur or whatever the hair was that he recovered. This is what's fun about this, is that he's able to do a little bit of this detecting as Bruce Wayne, billionaire playboy.
And that was the best part. It's like he does it as both. He has access as both faces.
And so I love this because he goes to this doctor, Dr. March, whose response is, he goes, "You donate a few $1 million and you think you own the place."
Wish he would have just been like, "Yeah, I fucking do."
Yeah, asshole.
Yeah.
But
it's
you have
called
Bruce
Wayne's Crazy Bat Doctor Research Place. It's the name of the place.
Shut the fuck up,
Dr.
and analyze
Marsh.
this damn hair. Like, so you have this part where we've joked about sort of the bad Bruce Wayne, like billionaire playboy.
Oh, hi.
But here's the line that he has. He goes, "Hey," he goes, "Yeah, Doc. See, I keep hearing squeaks in my chimney, and I found these in the empty fireplace. They look like hairs. I thought maybe you could tell me if I have a bat problem." And you're like,
it's like he just says everything with the broadest, whitest smile you possibly could have. He's just like easygoing, happy-go-lucky Bruce Wayne, billionaire playboy about town. That's such a great delivery, though, because there's a moment later on where he's just like Batman, and he's talking to Alfred, and everything's like this. And then Marsh actually calls him back, and he's like, "Oh, hi, Dr. Marsh." It's just such a
but
great...
he's in the
he's in the cowl
cape and
still.
cowl.
Yeah. It's such a
Like,
great moment, though. But that's
kills
good
me.
on you, Kevin Conroy, being able to switch like that. Funny.
Just nailing it.
But no, I love that moment where he's actually being the detective and he's following up. Now, granted, he does have his supercomputer at home, which is the size of a frickin' house, but he does have a supercomputer which he uses to kind of like corroborate what the doctor eventually tells him, which I like.
Right.
But he also meets a couple of other people at this research facility, correct?
Sure. So he actually meets Dr. Kirk Langstrom, who, interestingly enough, it's voiced by Mark Singer, and the part in the moment that I can't wait to have Dave reenact in a second is voiced by the one and only Frank Welker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
He voices Man-Bat.
That makes so much sense, which is why I was terrified.
Oh, God.
So he might actually want to build an army of dinosaurs.
That wouldn't be beyond him.
Yeah. Frank Welker also voiced, what's-his-face, Krulos from Dino Riders. Anyway,
and Dino Riders. So we have, and he's a zoologist at Gotham City Zoo, and so
with his hot wife,
his hot wife, and so super hot wife, smoking
it's a running
hot
theme
wife.
in this cartoon, by the way.
Yeah,
hot wife, hot wives of Gotham City.
Real Housewives of Gotham City
coming to Fox this fall.
If it was in the time slot of Gotham, I'd watch the hell out of it.
I'd watch that twice.
And I love the actors that are on Gotham, but I cannot watch the show anymore.
Anyway,
real bad. So we have this moment where we meet Langstrom, and you come to find out eventually that he is stealing serum from these different chemical labs, and he's trying to pin all of it on Batman. Well, he ends up being mistaken for Batman. And so it's sort of the perfect crime for him.
It kind of works out, except it makes zero sense why he goes from like mild-mannered scientist guy to like crazy wackadoo in like the space of just like Batman finding out what's going on. But before we even get to that, right? So he hands the docs these little brown hairs. He hands them a tape. I love...
I'd love to hear your impression of the tape.
I'll try to do it. So he hands him the hairs. He's like, "I found these hairs in my chimney. I think I got a bat problem." Dr. Marsh is all snarky. He's like, "Oh, nothing but a problem to you, right?" And Langstrom's like,
"You're probably just going to destroy them like an insect."
Destroy them. And Langstrom's like, "All right, calm down, crazy pants." And he just kind of like leaves, goes in the room. He's like, and then Bruce comes in. He's like, "I also found this. I also recorded the bats in my chimney. Take a listen." And if you've ever heard bats, they really don't make a lot of noise. They don't make much noise at all. And then what comes out of this tape recorder is something like, it's like, oh, that's normal. That's a normal thing. And the fucking, like, as Bruce Wayne is playing this tape, his eyes are just like slowly shifting back and forth. Like, anybody else catching this? That it's crazy? They don't react at all. They're just like, yeah, probably like brown bats. So I apologize if I blow out anybody's speakers. Or eardrum. But So they eventually call him back, and they're just like, yeah, those hairs are just like common brown bats. He's like, okay, what about the audio tape? He's like, brown bats and starlings, they're probably just fighting over a nesting site chimney. Happens all the time. Give us a call if you need anything. He's like, all right, thanks, Doc. He basically turns to Alfred, and he's like, all right, something's going on because this is bullshit. I ran the samples through the computer. I ran the audio through the computer. Couldn't find anything. Then he even goes and he runs like combinations of sound through this computer.
Right.
He's like, nope, something fishy is going on.
He catches him in his lie. He catches Dr. March in his lie about everything that's going on.
So everything is now
and that's what
towards
leads
Dr.
him.
March, right?
Right. So he's like, all right, March, like, I'm going to go and check you out and investigate this. And that's when he comes across and realizes that it's not actually March.
That's when things get
March
wild.
It's March is trying to cover up for Langstrom, who Langstrom is, I believe, married to his daughter.
Yes. And Langstrom flipped in a freaking instant. He goes
Holy
from
shit.
just like I said, mild man about town, to as soon as Batman shows up, because Batman's creeping around the lab, Langstrom hears him. He's like, who's there? Batman I thought he was just going to stay quiet. Like, just be like, oh, if I don't move, you can't see me. Batman
was he T-Rexing it?
Batman just straight stands up and is just like, oh shit, silhouette of Batman. And Langstrom's like,
No, I want to say this.
Yeah.
I'm going to accuse you of something right now. I want you to hold out as long as you can in the fashion of Dr. Kirk Langstrom. Okay? Dave, I'm accusing you of this thing.
Well, turns out that you're correct.
Oh,
I've
okay,
been
great.
doing this entire time. Oh my god. He flips instantly. Batman could have just been like, I lost my keys. And Langstrom's just like, I did it. I did everything. I'm the man that
I took your keys.
He flips instantly. But the crazy thing is that he had like zero reason to do so. If you read the comics, I think he was actually going deaf. So that explains some of the research into sonar and the research into bats.
Right.
It actually explains some more of the pseudoscience behind this stuff. But in the cartoon, Langstrom's just crazy pants. So he's just like, well, I've been making this serum. And he's just walking along, monologuing. Batman's hanging out on the other side of the room. Langstrom's walking along. He has all the empty like pill bottles from all the different pharmacies that he stole from as Man-Bat. And he's just like, well, I've got this serum here. And I've got everything I need except for one final ingredient. It's in me. And it's just like the fucking voice at this point is what made me shit my pants when I was a kid. Because they do this weird modulation where it's from the guy who does, what'd you say, Mark Singer?
Yeah, Mark
So it goes
Singer.
from Mark Singer's voice into like Frank Welker's creepy Man-Bat voice. And it modulates in such a way that was just like inhuman, unnatural, unholy, and it scared the crap out. And then, of course, he transforms like a werewolf into this giant Man-Bat creature, right? Man,
yeah,
this is nuts. For a first episode, you're introducing like genetic restructuring. You're introducing like basically like lycanthropy, like metamorphosis into a completely different being. I guess it would be chiroptery or something.
Yeah,
Let's go with chiroptery.
That makes the most sense. Yeah. Go to chiroptery.
So now it's like, boom, it's on. It's Batman versus Man-Bat.
And so they have this really fun epic battle across sort of all of the Gotham City skyline where they are flying back and forth
in front of the full moon.
Right. And just as we mentioned about just sort of like the shadows with darker shadows on top of them, the use of negative space, they have all these moments where it seems so picturesque, and yet the entire time Man-Bat is trying to shake Batman from this like grappling hook that he's tethered around like his like back leg that's just like dragging him through the sky, and it's
through
just,
like scaffolding and like smashing into windows and even the blimps on occasion. Batman should have been a shattered pulp of a human being by the end of this, by the way. But I digress.
But I mean, that's what makes Batman Batman.
Right. He's got a strong jaw, strong enough to take a shot right into the window of a dirigible.
Yeah, right. But but everything's resolved, thankfully, in this moment because Batman is able and manages to knock out Man-Bat
by literally just like flying him into a brick wall.
Yep.
He's like he's trying to choke him out and stuff along the way, and he literally just like flies into a brick wall and smashes his face.
Splat. Yeah. So in this moment, he's knocked out. He secures him and brings him back to Batcave because that always seems like a great idea. Never.
No, but I
So,
loved how they did it because what does he do at the Batcave?
well, he flushes his blood and like gives him a blood
Yeah, he basically
transfusion, and
analyzes
that's
like what his blood, so he knows what the serum is, flushes it out, and then just like detoxes him basically. So it's almost like he's
right.
taking a junkie and then just detoxing.
Right. So again, it's those moments where you see Batman actually being the scientist and the
Exactly.
detective and doing these things because, again, Batman is, yes, it's punching and it's fighting and it's stealth, but it's such a multifaceted character. It's nice to see all of those things come
Yeah.
together in one
Yeah.
show.
And I love one thing we didn't really talk about too much was the fact that Batman actually saves people. So he doesn't go out of his way to
Yes.
murderize them. He does actually save people. So he not only saves Langstrom at the end. We can talk about the very final conclusion in a second. I just wanted to make this point. There's a point where the SWAT team is actually going after Batman, and the whole team of them runs into this pharmaceutical place, and Batman gets a drop on one of them. He could easily just like knock this guy out, whatever. He basically just like he pins him against the wall and he just goes, shh. He just shushes him. And the guy's about to shit his
Yeah.
pants, so he stays quiet. But then, and this was a little crazy, his buddies are outside, and there's signs all over the place that say, no flame, no open flame, flammable stuff inside, everything's going to blow up if you have a flame. And the guy throws like a smoke canister, like a tear gas canister into the room,
Right.
which Batman sees and immediately grabs this guard up and jumps out a window with him and saves his life because the entire place just like explodes. Now, I don't know if that entire SWAT team is now dead because it looks like the entire facility blew up. But the fact that Batman just like actually actively saves people is something that a superhero should do and has done for
Right.
decades. Just wanted to make that point.
All those core tenets that makes Batman
Right.
are upheld in this show to a T, and they do a good job in later episodes and certain things of just kind of showing sort of the struggle and the problem with him and the conflict that he has internally with keeping up with those tenets. But I mean that no kill thing is always a big one,
Yeah.
and it comes into play a lot. Like there are a lot of moments and there are a lot of opportunities and times where he has the opportunity to take out a villain and be done with them for good, and he always chooses to do
Dude,
the
I mean,
right
he
thing.
easily could have just like killed this man bat creature thing, but he knew there was a man inside. He knew that it was a drug issue, and he used science and cleaned him out and gave him back to his wife. What's interesting is at the end when he delivers Langstrom back to like his wife and back to the lab, and she comes clean and
Right.
says, we were covering for him. My father was covering for him because we know he has a problem. Then it's like Batman just like walks in with the guy, and you're just like, okay, what happened?
Yeah.
That's it. Episode ends. So we don't really know what happened.
Yeah.
They do show up later on in other episodes, though, which are pretty great.
Yes.
I don't want to say anything about it. Pretty great.
Well, more notably, it's if you guys are looking for those
Yeah.
episodes, Langstrom comes back in Tiger
Nice.
Tiger, and he also comes back in Terror in the
Oh my
Sky.
God, Tiger is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
All right, so we've waxed poetic for quite a while for that one. Do you want to jump to the more or less penultimate or ultimate episode that we watched?
Yeah. Let's get into
So we're
it
to talk.
because
Yeah.
this is a great episode.
We're going to talk Deep Freeze. So for any Mr. Freeze fans out there, or if you're a fan of Carl Rossum, or if you're a fan of Grant Walker, if you know those names, then you'll enjoy this episode as well. And it was cool because I did not expect most of what happened in this episode.
And it was amazing too because there were moments in this episode where I kept thinking to myself, "Oh shit, this has maybe influenced other things that I've watched or other media that I've watched and taken part of in my life."
It definitely has, for better or worse.
It was so cool. Yeah. So this episode for Deep Freeze, we have.
Now, granted, you've had like 84 other episodes before this, right? So this is like pretty much the end. So a lot of shit has happened. Like he's fought Mr. Freeze a number of times to the point that like Mr. Freeze is actually locked up in, I guess it was Arkham. And he's got his own little special Freezy cell, so he doesn't have to have his power suit on. He can just kind of like hang out in his skivvies and his prison issue attire. So he's just hanging out in his Freezy cell.
I will say this: the Mr. Freeze character always is a difficult conundrum for me because I love him as a villain just because of the power and sort of the abilities that he has.
Yeah, and it's a fun psychological thing to play with too.
Right, and I love the no nonsense attitude that like when he is committed to something, he is very mechanical and he is very dedicated to getting to that end game. But the whole story that we have with his wife having, having to have been cryogenically frozen during that time, his wife Nora, and Nora Freeze being sort of in this stasis, like this almost like state of like, torpor, and
suspended animation.
she's there, and he's always trying to revive her, and so there's moments where like he's committing these crimes, but he's committing these crimes to save this woman that he loves,
but at the cost of literally anyone who gets in his way. So that's the two sides
right
of it.
But I think that undying love, like I want somebody to care about me the way Mr. Freeze cares about.
We're gonna do a Kickstarter to get Sean a cryo tank. Just put him in there, then you guys can come and visit him.
Put me in the.
That's what he wants, guy.
God, that's actually not what I said.
That's
I wanted,
what
but I'll
I
take
heard
it.
you want to be
I'll take it.
preserved for a long time.
You read my mind.
Faye Valentine
Can't wait.
is what you're telling me.
Just wake me up when I can finally be a space cowboy.
Yeah, sign me up for that. Let's get two.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But no, it's interesting because in this one, Freeze is separated from Nora. He's separated from everything. He doesn't have his tech. He doesn't have his suit. He's just isolated in prison. And it's crazy because he actually gets broken out of prison, but it doesn't really look like he wants to go.
Right. This is those rare moments where again, you have Batman being a detective. And so and these are in the obvious later episodes where Robin plays a little bit more of an actual sidekick as opposed to a boy blunder, right. Which he can sometimes sort of be in comic books and cartoons.
This is actually
so
it's
nice to sort of see him.
Go ahead.
It's nice to see him participate in a way that is fruitful.
This is actually like the only Robin iteration that I actually like from Batman the Animated Series, because there's one great episode with I think the Riddler where they have to go through this like virtual reality maze. And
I remember that where that like virtual reality thing is delivered to the police station,
and,
then
like
they put it on and they have to traverse.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's a great
I love that
one.
episode.
He's actually, I think, pretty good in that one.
Yeah.
He definitely has moments.
So we have this moment where the whole scene kind of opens up with this thing coming out of the water.
This huge like
just kind of
robotic looking shell of a whatever this walking tank is.
And you don't know what it is, and you don't know where it's going, and you don't really know the setting because it's not exactly clear. And so you see it all of a sudden come up to an electrified fence, just mows it down. You see it come up to a wall in like a prison where there's presumably a prison where there's a guard, and he just knocks the wall down and then just marches into this prison, and you see a whole platoon of soldiers just unloading on it. Nothing. You see some guy up in like the watchtower just throw a grenade. It explodes on it. Fucking nothing. So you're like, this thing's invincible. This thing is some tough shit. It walks up the wall. And during this time, as Dave has mentioned, Mr. Freeze is in that freezy cell. And he's kind of like, snow day, or like the first day of snow where, there's the snow that's on like, some glass pane, and he's kind of like wiping it off ever so gently. He's like, I wonder what is outside.
He's always like vaguely German, which is why Arnold kind of worked, but not really.
Never. Not my Mr. Freeze. # not my Mr. Freeze. And so this robot traverses the side of the prison wall, punches it, gets into it, and just and walks into the room where Mr. Freeze is, and he's just like, guard, like, please. And that's like, and again, that's like the range that Mr. Freeze can do is like, this is him excited, I'm excited, and this is him being abducted by a robot. Somebody please help me. And that's
being
like
abducted by a robot.
So like he gets scooped up into the body.
That
of
was
this
so
robot.
great. He just spatula, like a spatula came out of this robot's chest and just like whoop under Mr. Freeze and popped them in. That was great.
Just like popples them and puts them in this like
his
little
hammer
space,
shaker pouch. Yeah,
and then just walks off them. And so again, it cuts to this moment where you sort of see the wisdom behind Batman, where they're reviewing this Arkham.
Yeah, this was great.
Security feed, and and Robin's just jumping to conclusions, as he will do, and he's just like, can't believe Mr. Freeze getting away again.
Well, settle down there, boy wonder.
Yeah, and Batman's is like looking at him. That doesn't look like he's escaping Willie.
No, he's like, for a man with
And you're
no
like,
emotions.
ah.
Yeah, he looks
Yeah,
terrified.
right. Yeah.
Which was great. No, it was
And
great
so,
because it
yeah,
clues you in that Batman obviously has this history with Freeze. He knows his various psychoses. He knows that he's a man who's supposed to be in control of his emotions. He knows he did not go
right,
willingly. Yeah. So that opens up this
right,
whole other bizarro plot where a lot of weird little twists and stuff come in, and other characters like Carl Rossum.
right. So let's get into Carl
Let's get
Rossum.
into
So
him.
if you're familiar with the show at all, Carl is he's kind of a mechanical engineer. Um he created this thing called Hardak, and so he was he was the active leadership of Cybertron and designed and built Hardak, which was like an AI that was capable of producing other androids.
Yeah.
So sort of like this world's Ultron.
Yes, just like a giant, like building-sized computer slash manufacturing plant kind of thing with like a very advanced
Right.
AI.
And so, that was obviously his goal was to create Hardak for like his intent was never to create Hardak for nefarious
Right.
purposes.
He wasn't a supervillain. He wasn't a
Hardak-
mad scientist. He was just a guy who kind of screwed up.
Right. And so in this moment, like Batman knows that he can rely on him in moments where, there might be something regarding a robot that he needs to go and seek expert
Yeah, exactly.
advice.
So this is 2 episodes in a row. I should mention that both of these were actually directed by the same guy, Kevin Altieri. So both directed by the same guy. And yeah, this is the second episode that we've watched where Batman actually goes to a third party to get some expert counsel, which is great because it shows that he doesn't know everything. He's just corroborating with other people.
Right. So this is one of the episodes too that is fun because it kind of pays homage to another character that we get to see when he knocks on Carl's door.
Yeah.
And we've got Batmite.
Man,
we have a little bit of Batmite.
for a moment, I was
jumping
real worried because I thought this was going to go real south real quick.
Because it got a little bit more cartoony than I remember seeing a lot of these things happen, where Batmite just kind of gives, I believe, Robin a big old smoocheroo.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with Batmite, it's basically just like a pint-sized, very cartoonish looking version of Batman with like long ears. This thing is actually like from, I think, like the 5th dimension or from some nth dimension, where he's actually super powerful and can do pretty much anything, but he's just like super devoted to Batman, and he's called Batmite. Fortunately, this is not actually Batmite.
Yeah. It is a good thing too, because that would have completely derailed this episode. But we get our exposure to Carl Rossum, and we've seen him at this point in this series a couple times before during the whole series where we had all this Hardak stuff. And so he's an established character in the universe now. And so
just real quick, in case anybody wonders, it's not Batmite because it is a toy constructed by Carl Rossum. He basically is like a toy maker. He just makes all these dolls and robots still. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that.
And so they show him a picture of the robot, and Rossum is just like, oh yeah, I know what kind of robot that is. He's like, when I used to work for this other billionaire,
Grant Walker.
Grant Walker. I designed a bunch of these things for Grant Walker, and you're just like, well, now I know who to go to talk to. Like, that was the easiest interview I've ever had to do.
Carl Rossum
said Batman. Yeah, so this is where some of this stuff gets a little bit crazy.
A little crazy.
This gets a lot of crazy because the things that we're about to delve into. There are so many things that are about to occur that are very heavily influenced, that I'm sure have heavily influenced other things, as we've mentioned in current present day media. One of them being that Grant Walker is in the process of building this underwater city, which is sort of a utopia.
His version of a utopia.
It's sort of the perfect place for people to come and to allow humanity to regain its strength and revitalize and become a pinnacle of what it could possibly be. If you are at any point in time thinking to yourself, did they jump into the video game BioShock? And is this Andrew Ryan? Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Pretty much what it is. Kind of like, Ayn Randian at the same time. It's very It's if you're familiar with any of that at all, even like the design of it kind of looks the same, because it's just it's sort of a floating city, but it's got like that big dome over it, and then there's a lot of space underneath that houses everybody, and only the specific like chosen by Grant Walker can come into this place.
Right, which is incredible because there is so much story that is going on that is just kind of glossed over. It's given to you in chunks and pieces, and I almost kind of wanted to see that story of how Walker convinced, and I'm not kidding you, like an entire like city, an entire metropolitan city worth of people who were willing to follow his crazy scheme, which I don't know, Dave. Do you remember what it is?
I super remember what it is. But I don't know if he convinced the entire city because there were definitely going to be a lot of casualties. So it was like whoever was not part of his... It was a lot of people. Don't get me wrong. It was a lot of people. But I think whoever else was going to be in the city was just going to be like, well, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So they were just going to be like collateral damage kind of thing. But you might be asking yourself, what the hell does Mr. Freeze have to do with any of this? Aha. That's where we come to Grant Walker's wacky plan number 2, which is he's a billionaire, but he's getting older, and he's eventually going to die because that's how it works. But he knows that Mr. Freeze, because of the properties of his cells and his accident and his suit, Mr. Freeze is basically immortal. His cells are not aging. He is not aging at all. He's more or less indestructible. He's super strong thanks to his suit. And yes, he does have some shortcomings in that he can't like interact with the world around him, but he's basically immortal. So he's like a demigod. And Grant Walker wants the same thing. So he recruits Freeze to help him gain this immortality. He gives him his super suit back. He gives him his ice gun back, his freeze ray, whatever you want to call it. He gives him all his stuff and gets him out of prison. And Freeze is just like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm going to help you. But, you know, he doesn't thank him. He's just like, all right, well, I've got all my stuff back. Which he actually tests the gun out on that giant robot, and the thing just like freezes solid, falls over, and breaks into 50 pieces, which was great. But Freeze wants nothing to do with it. But I feel like Walker probably has a trump card.
He does, in fact, and we've mentioned her before, he has Nora Freeze.
Which I love because he basically won her in like a storage war, more or less. He got her like an auction from another company that like had suffered mass casualties. They had basically burned to the ground, but he had bought this company up and then hidden away somewhere in a bunker. It was Nora Freeze in her little chamber. So I mean, at this point, Mr. Freeze, he has no choice, right? He has to help.
Right. He feels the need to, in this moment, not only does he have access to his wife that's in stasis, but Walker has said to her, only I have the technology and ability to be able to revive her.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, you know, he plays his hand, and Mr. Freeze folds and is just like, I will help you. I will get this done.
Pretty much anything for his wife. And that's what you were saying before. It's that undying devotion and love is that he'll do anything for her, but at the same time, she's kind of the ultimate bargaining chip, can be used against him.
Let me ask you this. Did you get a weird Walt Disney kind of feel from Grant Walker?
Not until you mentioned it.
Okay.
Does
it make sense, though?
It definitely does now, because he's a frozen racist. Is what you're saying.
I was going to say frozen anti-Semite.
Potato.
But yeah, you know.
Parappa.
Parappa. So we have this moment where crazy Walt Disney is like, he's on this table and they're injecting him with all the material, like evidently the whatever's necessary to complete the process.
Yeah, some kind of cryopreservative that turns you blue.
And he gets up and he's just like, holy shit,
feeling
done.
Real good right now.
Like Mr. Freeze follows through on his part of the plan. Like he makes it happen. Like this is tech that now is available in this world for people to play with.
And he's got his own little Mr. Freeze looking suit, and he's looking good. He's just smashing tables because he can. It feels great. Yeah. It feels great. He's a little unsteady.
This feels wonderful.
Yeah, then he like falls over. He's a little unsteady for an old guy, but he's looking good. And meanwhile, like all of his people are amassing in this like central area where he is like Big Brother, his face on this giant mega jumbotron, where he's just like giving this monologue. Yeah, go ahead.
Addressing all of Oceania, which is funny that you would say Big Brother because Oceania is one of the 3 continents that exists in 1984. Exactly. So he's addressing this mass and he's saying like, this is my plan. we are going to point this freeze ray at Gotham
Well,
City.
he prefaces it like any good leader, any good kind of like megalomaniac should. He's like, out there, outside these walls, there's violence, there's hatred, there's anger, whatever. And he's just like, we will create a new...
He's showing all these title cards.
He's showing
you know,
like glimpses
to like
from
get
like
people like psyched up
from
and
like
crazy
from like a
about
soccer
it.
riot or something. And he's basically just like, we will restore justice within these walls. And anyone left outside is just like, oh, well, it's just like a casualty. And I love the fact that as he's given this monologue, they use this same scene twice. They show like the crowd, and in the foreground, there's like two guys that like turn to each other, and they're both just like, yeah, oh yeah, that sounds good. They're just like nodding like, oh yeah, sounds good to me. I'm glad I'm here. Hey, nice to meet you. And they showed that exact same thing twice. These two guys just like, oh hey, it's great.
I want to imagine that was the first moment where those two guys met each other and just like, we're going to be here for probably like 5 years
like
until the city thaws out.
Oh, yeah. So follow through with, that's the second part of his plan, like you were saying.
Yeah. So he's going to freeze everybody.
Everybody else, yeah.
These two guys that have just met for the first time are going to become Biffs for that 5 years.
While everybody's frozen and thawing out.
Right. And again, all the crime and all the hatred and pain and suffering that is outside, though these walls are going to be gone.
Frozen away.
And it is a small price to pay to be able to have all of the
pure society that we have
here. Exactly. Within these walls with you people.
And there's even a line
here.
where Walker says on the big screen, he says there will be no more crime, there will be no more death, and there will be no more injustice or whatever. And Batman, who we'll talk about how he plays into this. We'll back up a little bit. Batman basically says at the price of freedom or something like that. And it's a nice kind of, it almost ties into like Batman versus Superman, because it is a nice tie into how much freedom are you willing to give away for security? How safe do you need to feel that at one point you're going to give up all of your freedom? So you have to find that balance. Right. I would like to mention, because of this plot, you may be thinking to yourself, man, that really sounds familiar. It's because it was the same thing that they used in Batman and Robin, the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, except it was not the exact same plot. They just wanted to use a giant cannon to freeze Gotham City, without all of the actual like well thought out story that went behind it. So yeah, that was actually used for the basis of that. But so all this villainy is going on, right? Our buddies have to be around somewhere. Batman and Robin got to be sneaking around somewhere.
Right. So they've been creeping around.
They're creeping.
As much as possible.
They're trying to avoid these weird helicopter guards that are patrolling.
Yeah, and suddenly they get discovered.
Yeah, by
weird helicopter guards find them during this giant, almost like Ayn Rand 1984 Big Brother speech that's going on, and chase ensues. Batman and Robin both get captured,
clamped.
They both get brought to Mr.
I'll tell you
Freeze.
what, though, they took out a number of them helicopter bitches first, so good for those guys.
Brought down a lot of them bitches. And so we get that moment where Mr. Freeze is just holding like his gun, and this, I love how this cartoon worked so well with some of these commercial breaks, because you have that moment where Mr. Freeze is pointing the gun at them, and then he pulls the trigger, and you just see like this spiral of ice just kind of come out towards you. And that's where the planned commercial break.
There were actually
place.
A few scenes in this very episode that were used as like cut scenes for a future intro or for commercials. It was the moment where the helicopter bitches shine their spotlights on Batman and Robin, because they're on kind of like this overhang, this overlook, and the spotlights shine on them in a really cool way. And then another one where Freeze has his you look down the barrel of his freeze gun, which was really cool. Just real quick aside, you're talking about commercial cuts. One of the ones from On Leather Wings is a cut showing a mysterious figure in the lab just like burning the bat hair evidence and burning the entire tape recorder. Not just like, I don't think it was just the tape. I think he burned the entire recorder. Just like get rid of everything. Yeah. That just made me laugh. So I just want to mention. But yeah, so these guys are captured. Mr. Freeze is there. He basically freezes Batman and Robin together into one giant chunk of ice, and he's ready to just let crazy old Grant Walker get on with his business, right?
So we now have Batman and we have Robin captured.
Yep, Ice Cube.
They have like a, I don't know, it's like an inner tube around them of just like a circular ice inner tube.
It's like if they fell through the surface of like a frozen pond, and then the firemen just came and like cut out a big ring around them, but kept them stuck together in the ice. It just kind of took them
It's
out.
exactly
So
like
like their
that.
legs are kicking free, but it's weird. It's like an ice belt.
They got like this ice hula hoop
that
around
they
them.
share, the
This
two of them.
constrictive ice hula hoop around these two men. They can't get
They're
out.
stuck.
They're not going anywhere. So in this moment, you have, I want to say this plea for sanity. You see that this madman, you see that like crazy Walt Disney is getting ready to put his plan in motion. You see that the gears are beginning to turn, and that Grant Walker has issued some of these robots to begin the process to get ready to freeze all of Gotham City.
Yeah, we should mention that his entire force is robot. All of his followers are human. All of his actual workers are robot.
Right.
You can kill them with impunity, basically.
So we have these guys that are beginning to. We have these robots that are beginning to flick these switches and put everything in motion. And in that moment, Batman does, again, one of the things that I think we noticed this with the Flash on Justice League, but it's just the idea of empathy. Yeah. It's the idea of being able to empathize with the villain and simply say, "Hey, would Nora want this? Like, hey, Victor Freeze, would Nora, your wife, want this to happen?"
Because at this point,
if she wakes up in this world that you have destroyed and that you have completely frozen, is that the type of man that she's going to want to wake back up to? The man who has destroyed all of this.
And this goes back to
everything she loves.
Sean's point at the beginning of the episode, where it's like, Freeze will do anything for Nora, but he's also doing everything for Nora. So it's one of these things where he has to, give Grant Walker this immortality in order to get another chance with Nora, but then Batman makes him realize, like, you're doing this so you can have a life together, and she would never be with you if she figured out this is what you've done. So it's really messing with Freeze's head this entire time. But it leads to a cool moment, because Freeze literally just walks over to both of them, picks them up by their ice belt, and just shatters the whole thing in his gloved bare hands. And now it's Batman and Robin working with Mr. Freeze, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool moment.
Right. You get these fun team ups happen a lot on this show, and so things like that are always entertaining to see what the pairing is going to be. And so in this moment, you have Mr. Freeze, and I don't know why they gave him that freeze gun. Walker must have been a real trusting dum-dum, because Mr. Freeze is just like, to everything that's around.
My name is Mr. Freeze. I'm just going to do what I do.
He does the little Marvel Iceman thing where he like shoots the thing under his feet and he just kind of glides down like it's stairs.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
And so, kind of fun to see him go through some of these things.
He lays waste to just like a whole line of these robots too.
Everything.
Like, robot secretaries just doing their job. He just gone. Poor thing.
We get this moment where Grant Walker, now in the same superpowered suit, is coming towards him and is just like, "I'm gonna fuck you up.
I got the strength."
And hits him with a wrench.
He had the robot claw at one point, like starts to crack Mr. Freeze's dome. Yeah.
Right. So you get these moments, and then Freeze just turns around and is just like, "Bitch, settle," and just shoots him.
Do you remember what he said?
With the freeze ray. No, what actually he didn't say.
Goes, "You may live forever, Grant Walker, but your mad plans end now." Something like that. And it was so good because he's like half robotic, but just so cold, and those red eyes in the center of his glasses. So good. And he freezes the sucker. Freezes him like a starfish.
Freezes him. And then he watches as all of his plans, like he cranks up the reactor so that it's going to explode. And you hear Walker give that final plea. He's just like, "That'll destroy everything." And then Freeze just turns around and just, without saying a word, just shoots him in the face and freezes his head.
Now this dude is now like immortal, right? And he's frozen solid.
Right.
He can't go anywhere, but he's not going to die. Well, that's what you wanted. You wanted immortality. And then there's another cool moment though that happens towards the end. Is like Batman's trying to get people out and trying to get him and Robin out, trying to get Freeze out.
Again, Batman is saving people.
Batman is saving
including
people. Mr. Freeze, who wants Freeze to get out of there.
Mr. Freeze is freezing people. Yeah. And so they're in the process of evacuating Oceana, which I'm going to be honest with you. Oceana, because there's a pan at some point where you kind of see how big Gotham City is as opposed to, And it's sort of like a giant land bridge that's kind of coming out to Oceania. How did Gotham officials just allow somebody to create? Who zoned this fucking thing?
Billionaires.
Who issued a permit
City of billionaires.
for this billionaire underwater city thing to be built? Just complete autonomy from oversight.
Dubai.
Yeah,
Them crazy fuckers are building islands in the shape of palm trees just because they can. So people do what they do.
Well, good
this
for
is
them.
what money gets
Good
you.
for them.
Super villainy. I can't wait to be a billionaire.
Podcast. I'm gonna be so evil. I'm gonna be
Guys,
evil.
we're gonna be so evil. Come join us in Oceania. But no, so this is great. As Oceania's just like blowing up and starting to like sink all around them. Batman and Robin getting people out, and then the last thing they're like, "Freeze! You've got to come with us." And he's like, "I cannot leave Nora." And they're just like, "No, asshole, you got to come with us. We got to get you out of here.
Like you're gonna die.
You're literally just gonna die." And then Freeze does something that was pretty cool. It was kind of a dick move, but it was also pretty cool. You remember what he did?
So he leaves to turn around, and Batman throws a grappling hook, like a tether around him. He lassos and shoots him. And so in that moment, Mr. Freeze just looks at him and just flexes, and it bursts the rope.
Like, good luck, Bats.
And he points the freeze gun right at Robin, right at Dick Grayson, freezes him like from neck to toe.
I actually felt bad because it looked like Robin was like super cold at this point. He just immediately starts I
was like, he's gonna die.
He's straight up gonna die. He's got like 30 seconds.
And then he turns away from Batman and just goes, "Take the boy and leave now." And that was it. And just walks back into Oceania.
Right back to Nora.
And Batman does what I want to say is probably either the smartest and the silliest thing.
Yes. It's so chivalrous, though. It's very chivalrous.
Yes.
For your boy Wonder.
Takes off his cape, wraps it around him, and just kind of baby carries him.
And he's like, "You're going to be all right."
Ship.
He's carrying roughly, let's say Robin weighs 150 pounds, right? Soaking wet. He's got literally another 200 pounds of ice on him right now. So Batman's just cradling 350 pounds of frozen boy Wonder and just like slowly walking him over to like an escape ship or whatever. And he's like, "You're going to be fine, Robin."
So Ice Cube Boy Wonder you see him as they're driving away on this ship, and he's just dripping water,
still wrapped in a cape,
still wrapped in a cape. But in those moments, you see two additional things.
One made no sense to me. The other one was very touching.
Well, you see Walker continuing like in that starfish frozen shape, continuing to sink to the bottom, and in those moments, you sort of see a fish
just
kind of move past him. And you realize, like, oh, he's immortal and he's frozen. Oh, no. Like, he's stuck there indefinitely.
Now,
like, he's going to...
My only problem was that ice would not sink like that. He would actually still float. But it's fine.
Is there something to be said about whether or not his bones are if he's negative or positive buoyancy?
I mean, cut to the next scene, and that kind of, even if that would be possible, I mean, I still think the ice would hold him up. He would have to be heavy as shit to sink an ice... of that size.
The suit. Isn't the suit super heavy?
Okay, but then cut to the next scene and it doesn't make sense because a similar thing is happening, but they're floating. But go ahead. This is a great scene though. I love this closing scene.
So we have this final moment Right. So we have this final moment for Victor Freeze where we see that there's sort of this enclosure of ice that is sort of drifting away from Oceania, from everything else. And it's kind of going out into the water to this other iceberg. It seems like it's out there.
It seems like the entirety of Oceania kind of, whatever didn't sink was like formed into an iceberg. So it's almost like this weird floating iceberg kind of mini city. Yeah.
Right. And so you see Victor Freeze kind of floating in this ice enclosure, and inside is Nora. And you get this side shot of Nora standing there and Freeze kind of standing in front of her, kind of looking up at her. And then you get this one shot of him just kind of like reaching out, like with his hand, like touched like very delicately and very lovingly, like against the glass. And you're just like, oh God, he lived. Like, he ultimately got what he wanted. And I think that's what sort of makes it a beautiful story for me. It's always the cost. it's always like, at what cost does he get what he wants? And that's always what is just so hard.
And then back in the Batcave, they do kind of make like a passing mention to this, or like, well, first of all, Robin is like thawed out, and he's like, man, if I had to spend another minute in that immersion tank, I'd have to grow gills or something silly. And then they're just like, hey, Freeze is pretty much immortal, so there's a chance that he's still alive out there, right? And they basically just say like, yeah, if he survived, then I'm sure he's with Nora now, one way or the other, or something like that. Those are really kind of like bittersweet, which is perfect for Freeze, but just like a nice ending for that particular episode. Because he's like a villain who at this point didn't really mean to do anything wrong, actually ended up saving some people, and then just like will live the rest of his unnaturally long life with his unnaturally pseudo-frozen wife in like this crazy but touching relationship that they have.
Right.
Before we roll on, is there anything else you wanted to mention from the 2 episodes? I have something that we didn't really talk about too much, but if you have anything else.
Not from these episodes.
My only thing was Alfred. We didn't talk about Alfred. He was so great in both of these.
Didn't.
Alfred has like the funniest kind of just like one-liners and just like off the cuff remarks. Like when Batman goes out hunting Man-Bat for like the second night, Alfred's just like, oh my God, what does he call her? Something like Peggy or Maggie or something like that. Did he call her a socialite or some like weird kind of like slur? He called us a weird slur where it was just like, shall I call off your appointment with the socialite, Miss Maggie, or whatever the hell her name was. But he's just like such a little turd. He was great though. Great moment. Nothing flusters him. Nothing makes him like, nothing ruffles his feathers. He's just like cool as a British cucumber. I mean, he's great. Alfred's great. So like every facet of this show is great. I can't say enough. Anything else, brah?
No, not about these episodes. I do want to make a mention of something that as I was kind of reading through a lot of the episodes and looking back on some of these, lesser known villains. I will say the Wikipedia page that has the episode list is great because it actually gives you the different villains for any of these episodes. Right. So if you're ever thinking to yourself like, oh, what was that episode with the ventriloquist? Or I'm looking for Maxie Zeus, or one of these Red characters Claw. That's on there. Right, God. So if you're looking for any of these characters, you definitely check that out, and you can kind of narrow it down to exactly what episode you're looking for. There was one episode that for some reason, I don't know why, as I was scrolling through, it's episode 62. Mm-hmm. It's His Silicone Soul. And it's the villain in this is Hardak and the duplicate Batman. Mm-hmm. And this one is so interesting for me because it has Hardak, so we have Rossum in this episode. The interesting thing is there's just a note at the bottom of this that says the anime series The Big O was partially inspired by this one episode.
That's interesting. That makes me really want to cover The Big O on like fairly soon upcoming episode.
Yeah, I'd love.
I'd still love to do a Mecha month. That would be a really good one for Mecha. I'd like to include that.
Let's do it.
We'll put that on the list.
Let's get into it.
Big O, Big O, Big O. The mythology of that story is just completely insane.
It's bonkers.
But I love it.
It's one of the few action figures that I have that's like it's been on my desk for like 12 something years.
The Mega Deuce?
The Mega Deuce.
A terrible name for a robot.
It's the worst.
But that episode actually does it's a good segue into our 100th episode, which we'll talk about now rather than at the end of this episode, because we are going to be bringing in a number of special guests who have joined us over the past almost 2 years on the show at various times, and they, along with us, are going to talk about our favorite villains and their best moments from this series. And the episode that Sean mentioned may or may not be on that list. You'll have to tune in to find out, but we're going to have a lot of voices on the next one, so definitely tune in. We're not going to cover everybody's favorite, but we'll probably pick up at least one of your favorites from everything we're going to talk about. So if you guys hear this episode and you have any suggestions for things that you'd like us to talk about on that upcoming episode, or just feel free to share your favorite memories of Batman the Animated Series and specifically the villains with us, and we'll see if we can do a shout out for you on the next episode. Yeah,
absolutely.
Until then, Sean, buddy, what do you have going on over the next couple of weeks?
Oh man, I will have just competed in the Washington D.C. 48-hour film festival.
Competed and won.
So We won't know if we've won until after episode 100 airs. So fingers crossed. I'm not really. We have a lot of fun with it, so we're very excited. So we'll be doing that. So you can check that out by searching 48 Hour Film DC online. I also want to say and give a shout out to a really fun little project that I did recently that was in DC with something called Little Salon DC. If you are not familiar with Little Salon DC, definitely check them out. Find them on Instagram and Facebook. They do unusual art in unusual spaces, and it was
I got arrested
fantastic
for that once,
to be a part.
So I hope it was enjoyable.
It was a lot of fun. A woman volunteered her townhouse, and we took it over and built installation art into it with audio, video, dance, poetry, and a live theater interactive experience for all the people who came in. And so it was a really fun thing that we had a chance to do with a lot of friends in Columbia Heights within DC. And so if you're interested, please check out Little Salon DC. Actually, a friend of the show, Melanie Harker, was also involved with that as well. As always, I'm doing improv in DC with Washington Improv Theater. I will be performing, as always, with Nox. That's NOX ! And we've got a slew of shows that are coming up in the May and June timeframe. And as always, you can check them out at witdc.org. I am forever on the Instagrams and the Twitters. And you can find out actually a lot more information because I posted a ton of stuff from Little Salon DC. So you can check me out at Sean Paul Ellis. I will be there for the rest of my life.
I was going to say
sells my information
to Hardak.
People once I'm dead.
To Hardak.
It's a Hardak.
And then they'll create duplicate
Dave, what do you got going on?
No, I thought it was funny that I thought your name was at Forever on Twitter and Instagram. At Forever. But apparently it was not. It was Sean Paul Ellis. I'm not on Instagram. Don't know what it is. But I am on Twitter at Dr. Claw MD. You can also find me over at collider.com. I'll be finishing up the last few episodes of Arrow here, recapping them as well. And then I'm done with recaps for a long time. So we do have other things like The Flash is still going on. Game of Thrones, we have recaps for that as well. And Fear the Walking Dead. So feel free to come on over to collider.com. Check those out. You can also find my writing on Nerdist. I'm a science freelancer for them as well. And if you're curious about my own short fiction, you can head over to davetrumbore.com. I've got some of my stories posted up there. If you're interested in finding out more about Saturday Morning Cartoons, you can do so at our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also follow us on Twitter, at MorningTunes. Check out Sean's handiwork on our Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. You guys have been awesome on our Facebook page. We're getting more and more likes, more and more comments, more and more smiling faces every single week, and it's fantastic.
Guys are great.
We love it. We love talking with you guys, too, and sharing these memories. It's literally the reason that we started this show, so thank you very much, and we hope you continue to do the same. We also have a YouTube account, so feel free to listen and or watch our episodes there. And if you'd like to just listen to audio only, you can do so through Audacity and iTunes each and every week for the price of $0.00. Also, feel free to contact us through email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. .gmail.com? That's never been a thing.
You want to do that again?
No, good. People figured out. You guys are so smart. You're the smartest listeners and friends ever. Guess what? This is only part 1 of 2. We're halfway there. Halfway to success. Batman the Animated Series Part 2 coming at ya. We already told you what it's going to be about, but just in case you were fading out, it's about the villain, the rogues gallery, the best moments, the antagonists, the crazies, the psychopaths, the inmates. Anything else you got? Anything else?
No, I think you covered all the bases.
All right. No, we're looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And we're going to be joined by a lot of friendly faces as well. So we hope to see you next time. And as always, thank you for listening. This has been Saturday Morning Cartoon.